in the middle of the night, like me, nobody else, and taking the mushrooms and just going on this wild journey. And I think the reason I love psychedelic medicine so much is that it makes you so uncomfortable. Like it takes you to like the edges of your comfort in terms of like, your consciousness, how you feel about yourself, how you feel about other people. And in this last experience, it was like facing like a lot of darkness, like in terms of like a lot of fear in various ways, and having to like work with that fear. And again, coming back to the practice of yoga, thank God for yoga and thank God for the breath, because like it like saved me in this moment where it could become too overwhelming and you lose your mind or something like that, right? But the reason why I love psychedelics too is like it feels like, again, we get all these like energetic barbs on our body, especially on our heart, and then using yoga daily as a daily practice. But I find these like big psychedelic experiences like help you to like release these energetic barbs in like a big way, like in a giant way. It's like a scrubbing or a cleaning of yourself or something. You're scrubbing off like the plaque of life, right? Like all the BS of life that kind of accumulates.
Welcome to the Power Plant Body podcast. My name is Taylor, and this show is focused on self-development. I found in my own life, as well as the lives of my clients that I've worked with, that it's human nature to focus on goals in one area of life, or maybe two areas of life if you're lucky, to the detriment of the other areas of your life. For this reason, there's a tool that I use with my clients called the Goal Wheel that is specifically designed to shed light on how you might be preventing yourself from living the fullest life possible. In a nutshell, the Goal Wheel is a circle drawn on a piece of paper that's been divided into 8 quadrants. The 8 quadrants are family and friends, romance, fun and recreation, health and fitness, finances, personal growth and spirituality, career, and physical environment. Basically, you give yourself a score between 1 and 10 for each of these areas of your life, and that allows you to see where you're excelling and putting your attention, but it also shows you the areas of your life that you're currently neglecting. The areas of life that we neglect are often the areas that we need to work on the most. And that's exactly why I started this podcast, to share insights from teachers who are experts in one or more of these areas of the Goal Wheel. Each interview is meant to inspire you to take action in one of those areas so that you can live a more fulfilled and balanced life. To get your hands on a free copy of the Goal Wheel PDF so that you can use it to create meaningful goals and take steps to achieve them, head over to powerplantbody.com/free-tools. You'll find a bunch of other free tools and resources there as well. My guest today is Michael Toru, an incredibly skillful yogi, hand balancer, and movement specialist. Earlier this year, I met Michael at our local gym here in Victoria. It's called Studio 4 Athletics. Now, I'd been trying to learn handstands for some time, and Michael, being an incredible handstand teacher, gave me a few tips in passing that instantly and drastically improved my handstands. Michael's story of how he came to learn and eventually teach yoga, movement, and breathwork is a very impactful one. Like all great teachers, Michael began his journey in search of answers to his questions and solutions to the problems that he was facing, one of which was life-threatening. In our conversation, Michael shares his understanding of ancient yogic philosophy and the important role that it can play in modern life. And with life moving faster each day, taking a moment to relax into your body and be present with yourself seems to be the medicine that we all so desperately need. Michael and I also talk about psychedelics, yoga on and off the mat, and creating energizing morning routines that suit your individual lifestyle. I know you're going to get a lot out of what Michael has to share, so without any further delay, I bring you my conversation with Michael Toru. Well, Michael, I appreciate you being on the show, and it's interesting talking to you here because I see you in the gym. This is the first time I think we've ever spoken in a FaceTime kind of conversation, but I'm looking forward to learning more about you, man, because I know you as a hand balancer in the gym. I know you as an absolute beast when it comes to yoga and body weight, but I know that there's a backstory to all this that's going to be very interesting to learn more about. So I just invite you to take the next few minutes to let people listening and myself know who you are, what you do, and maybe a little bit about how you came to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for having me on your podcast. I'm freaking stoked, man, to chat. Yeah, it's crazy because I think we kind of first met basically you were trying handstands, and then I was like giving you some pointers and stuff. I was like, like tighten up that a little bit and that, and that's like one of my greatest joys is like just like if people are open to it, like giving them little bits of advice on handstands, hand balancing, because so one thing that I love, one of like many things, but I think it's a beautiful practice because it I don't know, once you like can nail a handstand, and it can become almost like a meditation, which kind of sounds weird to people, but it's a beautiful practice. So really stoked to be here chatting with you. It's an interesting question, like who am I, what do I do? I always struggle a little bit to how to answer this, I guess, but I'm maybe like starting a little bit with my story, because to get where I am today and with yoga and all the things of, I guess, what I do and what I put out into the world, it started a while ago. And when I was a child, I felt like I wasn't connected to any of what I'm connected to now, like in terms of, if we want to call it a spirituality, and to like a practice, a purpose, dharma, whatever it is. I feel like there was like no connection to that. Didn't know myself at all, and I think that caused like a lot of pain inside of me, inside of my body, a lot of stress. And it was like around 16, I just started to feel, things were starting to happen in my body, and it was crazy. At 16, like you're in like, should be in like the peak of your life, but my body was like, felt like it was like in a lot of pain. It was like shutting down. I was starting to get like, a lot of stomach or intestinal issues. And down the road, long story short, it ended up being that I had ulcerative colitis. So it's basically, where you have ulcers inside your large intestine, and it gets like, super, super painful. A lot of people probably know what Crohn's disease is. And it's very similar to Crohn's disease, just affects the large intestine. Crohn's affects the small intestine. But so from 16 to 19, it was just a struggle. Didn't know who I was. Like, you're going through the mishmash of high school and whatnot, trying to navigate that whole thing too, right? Girls and drinking, partying, drugs, all that. And things just hit a head, like mental breakdown, a lot of like depression, things like that. And finally got diagnosed that I had ulcerative colitis, and it was just so bad that I was like actually really close to dying, because I was losing like so much blood. Yeah, I know. It's kind of crazy. You can die. Like I've known a couple of people that have actually died from it.
Oh my goodness.
It's kind of crazy, right? So I was like pretty close to dying, and had to make a choice. So I decided to get surgery, got my large intestine taken out, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. It's kind of crazy to say, like, but it kind of like woke me up. It was like, I literally remember like waking up from the surgery and being, in the bed and the bright lights, and obviously it's like incredible amount of pain. But then there was also, it was like, I don't know, I don't want to say God or spirit, but it was like something, it was like waking up to like something, and like a new life or whatever it was. And I felt like a different person, and I was like never really into like reading and personal growth and development. But then it's like something like snapped, like literally in the hospital, like started reading these, like was drawn to these different books. Some people brought them into me like by synchronicity. And I just started to change my life from like basically 19, 20 years old. And that took me, there's a lot in between there, but it took me on a path of really wanting to heal my body and not wanting to be on all these crazy amount of pharmaceutical drugs. I was just tired of being on, like these steroids and stuff, prednisone and things like that. And it was like, just wasn't good. And I just eventually stumbled upon yoga. And it was, I don't know if you know what Tony Horton is. P90X.
Of course, yeah.
I've shared this story a number of times, but it's kind of funny, right? Because like Tony Horton, P90X, he had a yoga part in there, and it just like kicked my ass. I was doing a lot of bodybuilding, and I tried the yoga, and I was like, oh my God, like what is this? It's incredibly hard. It's like moving my body in this different way. It's, I thought I was strong, but I wasn't strong in all these other aspects. I was like neglecting neglecting certain things. We think of strength sometimes just how much we can, bench press or squat or whatever, right? But like strength is like mobility is strength, having really good mobility in your body, as you know, right?
All too well.
Yeah, all too well, right?
In the wrong way.
In the wrong way. Totally. And so basically, from that, I got really drawn into it. I was like, what is this? And started deep diving, finding teachers online, in person, and kind of went on the yoga ride and just had my own practice for a very long time. But then I felt compelled and called to teach. And my partner, my loving partner, Sarah, was like, eventually it was like, just pushed me over the edge. She's like, hey, you need to commit, and you've been talking about your teacher training. So went to Bali, and did the Blissology yoga teacher training. And it was like, my purpose in life, like what I was going to do, kind of felt like so fractured. I was like a lifeguard for many years. It was like okay job. It was like good in many respects, but it was like, at the end I was just like done with it. Didn't want to do that. And going to doing that yoga teacher training, it just like opened things up. I was like, oh my God, like this is what I want to do. Like some people talk about how they just like go to a yoga teacher training just for themselves, just to, maybe learn more about themselves, their practice. They don't even necessarily want to teach. For me, it was like, I knew that I wanted to teach, and I could feel that, like that burning inside. And I went, and it revolutionized everything. I was like, I want to share this medicine, like this practice that's healed me. I want to share it with other people. And it really is a medicine for me. Like I was saying before, I was on all these pharmaceuticals, and just knew it wasn't good for me ultimately, right? And I'm able to don't have any pharmaceutical drugs that I take, and I feel freaking amazing. And I attribute, there's many factors, good diet, psychedelics, but yoga is like giant on that list. And then that's kind of, that's the main purpose of what I do now, is like teaching yoga. I have my YouTube channel, which I'm like incredibly passionate about, and that combines videography as well, which I'm a huge lover of. I have my own media business, so I do work with different clients, a lot of clients actually in the yoga industry and stuff like that, but kind of merging all these different creative worlds. But the main thing I'd say is overall like teaching and sharing yoga in person in Victoria, but then online, and yoga, but also just like movement in general too, right? Like sometimes we get stuck on these terms. Before we started recording too, we're talking about labels and identities and stuff. And I definitely think of myself as a yogi. I'm proud of that, but I don't want to get too caught up in that too. It's also like just movement, right? Movement medicine, and sharing that with people is a beautiful thing. So I don't know if that's a long-winded answer, but
there's a lot in there to unpack.
There's a lot in there to
perfect.
unpack.
Yeah,
Awesome.
It lays a good foundation.
Cool.
One of the questions that comes to my mind immediately when you bring up this, almost like a new lease on life, right? Like you went under the knife, and you were at a moment where you could have died. Like you were at this pretty challenging part of your life, and you woke up and you said that something was different. It was almost like something had shifted, like the weight had been lifted, and maybe like a new path was calling you to go down it. You're at this place now where you're a yogi and you're teaching yoga. Did you have an inclination even before your partner pushed you into teaching, in that moment when you woke up? Maybe you didn't know it in that moment, but do you feel like a big part of that pull, or a big part of that magnet that was starting to pull you somewhere, was this wantingness to teach or to give back or to mentor in some way, shape, or form? What was that feeling that you had when you woke up from your surgery?
Well, thanks for that amazing question. I've never actually really contemplated or considered it in this exact way. So I really appreciate you posing this question. If I look back on it now, absolutely. I think that was like the start of, my path towards my dharma, I guess, right? And dharma being, I guess, simply like for yourself, like, this your purpose, like what you want to share, your gift, right? Your passion. There's obviously the bigger context of it too, but looking, I would say that probably was the first, like the first bit of it, but it back then though, it didn't, like I said, I like really didn't know myself. Like I felt like, oh man, I was just so like unconscious. It was, video games and smoking a lot of weed and, like I said, partying, drinking, getting blackout drunk so often, like, it's not living like an overall healthy and conscious life. So it was kind of like, didn't have like the best foundation. Like when I did wake up from that, there was no foundation of like, oh, like, I didn't even know about yoga, right? So like it wouldn't have even been a thought of yoga specifically, but I know what you mean. There was something there that was like this teeny little seed that was like just starting its first like blooming, I guess you could say, right? Which is, something really cool to kind of reflect on. I appreciate that question. But definitely had no idea that I was going to teach yoga or even do yoga, to be honest, at that point.
But you felt some type of pull. I was interviewing a guy named Namanya a couple of weeks ago, and he has this tattoo on his wrist or on his hand, and it's a circle that goes in on itself. And he was talking about how it's similar to the hero's journey, right? Where you set out on your hero's journey, you come around 360 degrees, and then you're right back at the start of a new hero's journey. And when I hear your story, it sounds like, you woke up from your surgery and you were at the start of your hero's journey, and you've come full circle. Now you're the mentor, you're the teacher, and you're back on another hero's journey from what I'm hearing. And this part of the journey is more about that contribution of what you've learned on the path. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what is that? Like when you talk about teaching yoga, when you talk about teaching movement, what is yoga? Because a lot of people, myself included, when we hear yoga, we think about, the yoga studio down the street or, something like that. But I understand also that yoga has a much deeper meaning, a much deeper philosophy behind it. So what would you say yoga is? What's your experience with yoga, and how would you describe it?
Yeah. Again, really on point questions. Thank you. My teacher, Ian Finn, he talks about how, yoga is just such a broad brushstroke, and that, it can mean so many different things to so many different people. And there's so many different styles too of yoga, right? I'm sure with powerlifting and bodybuilding, things like that too, like, as you know, like there's so many different styles and approaches to all of that, right? And same thing in yoga. There's, vinyasa yoga, there's Bikram yoga, there's moksha yoga, it just goes on and on and on. And for me, it's really true. Like there is like a deeper level. And I think that's what ultimately, originally it was that, Tony Horton was kicking my ass, like physically on the mat. And I was like, Tony, like I got to be able to do this practice. And it was like a pure physical thing. It was like a pure ego. Like I just want to be able to do this hour and a half class, get through it. And, all the physical postures and things like that. But a lot of people talk about it's like kind of the physical part of it, being in the hot room. Sometimes it's not hot yoga. It just could be just being on the mat, moving your body, getting strong, flexible, whatever. That's kind of what draws a lot of people in. But it's those deeper levels of what yoga is. And I guess for me, it's like this real medicine of, I keep coming back to that word, but that's really like what resonates the most. If I had to like sum it up into like one word, and it just allows you to really connect in a lot deeper with yourself. And and for me, a lot of it is like about the breath, right? And it's like using this simple inhale and exhale. It's like however long you're practicing, if you have half an hour, you have an hour, whatever it is, it's like, we breathe all day long, but it's part of our autonomic system, right? And we're not really thinking about it. And it's nice in the practice, just like you just focus on the breath, this like life force in and out, and using the breath too to like, I think of it a lot like we're on our skin, our tissues, in our heart a lot. We're collecting dust and like these like energetic barbs almost from just daily living, right? And we all have different practices of how we can like release that, right? So for you, like, lifting heavy weights and stuff, some of the stuff you lift, I'm like, oh my God, but like that can, that can help to, release, you maybe would say it in a different way, but it can help to release some of that, stuckness, that stuck energy that builds up, the frustrations of life and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
And I find that yoga and just being with your breath for that amount of time that you have, and like for me, I'm like consciously, especially on the exhale, like thinking about the exhale, like releasing like dark smoke almost like out of my body, and like almost like visualizing the stress and the anxiety, the fear, the worry, whatever it is, like kind of like releasing out of like all my pores and stuff. And it's powerful. And I think that's ultimately like what has drawn me, is like this deeper level, and like through releasing that energy, it's not like releasing entirely. Like, I mean, I feel like I always have anxiety. There's like, it's just like managing it basically, right? But it's able to like get at least in tune with that, what that anxiety is, be like kind of like more intimate, release what you can and like integrate what you can. And it's a beautiful practice. So yeah, it's again, maybe a long-winded answer, but I hope that paints some sort of a picture.
It does. I mean, a long-winded answer is good, especially when we're talking about something that's washed over as far as terminology or understanding is concerned, as yoga, right? Most people, like I say, just think about yoga as a place that you go and stretch out for a bit. And I think I shared this on the interview that I did with Brian, our mutual friend of ours. And we were talking about stretching. I think it was with Brian. And I was talking about the first time I ever went to a yoga class. It was to go meet women in Vancouver, because I had no idea what yoga was either. And my uncle said, hey, yeah, go to a yoga class, because that's where all the girls hang out. And so I didn't meet any girls there, but what I did learn was the yoga teacher, we were about to get into pigeon pose, and she said, now, just before we get into pigeon pose, a lot of people, especially guys, tend to trap their emotions in their hips. So if you feel any emotions coming up, just breathe through it, and it's there for you to experience. And I was like, I remember hearing that, being, my God, that's just so hippie, what is this woman talking about? What did I sign up for? And sure enough, I got into whatever variation of pigeon I was able to muster at the time, which was not, I was a guy who had never even heard of the pose. And I remember getting into that thing, and even getting into it, I started to feel emotions, and then those emotions started to bring up memories, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is what she was saying was real. And what you just shared about your practice in yoga and breathing in and visualizing energies moving through your body, that is, I can tell anybody who's listening from my own personal experience, which is very limited compared to yours, Michael, that that is very true. That's the experience of memories and emotions, anxieties, and just general experience of your life up until this point can very much be either challenging going through yoga if you try to fight it, or incredibly relieving if you work with it. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great way to kind of like distill it down. Absolutely. And I'd actually be curious to ask you too, like what's like when you're lifting heavy weights in the gym, and everybody listening, like you are a freaking beast. Like every time I see it, I'm like, when you're pumped up too, I'm like, holy God, you're just fucking jacked.
Makes sense.
But when you're in the gym and you're doing your thing, because like for me too, that I guess to like maybe expand upon that last question too, is that yoga, it doesn't necessarily need to be on a rectangular mat, you know, and yoga could be anything. Like I think of my daily life, like walking through life as a yoga, right? And it might sound like a little like hippy dippy, and people listening are like, oh God, but like maybe not though too. You can relate. Maybe some people listening too.
Yeah.
But like that, everything can be a yoga, right? If you're at the doing dishes, I'm like, there's a big pile of dishes behind me, right? And I got to like do dishes later, but like, you know, breathing and like, you know, feeling the warm sudsy water and being like connected and tuned in and mindful of that moment, it can be a yoga. So like, you know, powerlifting, bodybuilding can can be a form of yoga, and this like kind of this energy, working with energy and energy release potentially. Yeah. So I guess I know you're interviewing me, but I'd be interested to know your experience kind of with that through the lens of what you do.
Well, as you, especially washing the dishes and like feeling the suds, or, you know, feeling the warmth of the water on your skin, that's really present, right? Like you're in the moment as opposed to thinking about the future or reminiscing on the past. Mm-hmm. And maybe another word is flow, right? Flow state, which is like I guess like the Silicon Valley word that we use instead of yoga. Is that fair to say? Like flow and yoga, are they similar or almost interchangeable, would you say? Like being in the moment and just experiencing what comes up?
Yeah, actually, I really love that. And I mean, there is like I teach, I would say overall like flow, a flow style of yoga, right? Some people call it like vinyasa too, but yeah, you're kind of, you're in this flow of the practice of life, right? Mm-hmm. That flow state, I'd say it is, for me at least, it's interchangeable. Some people might not agree, but it's, you're trying to get into that state for sure. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to answer your question really quickly, and then I want to go to this off the mat concept that you have, because I think that's beautiful as well. So your question to me was, is it similar doing like the powerlifting or the bodybuilding kind of thing? And maybe a little bit, but for me, like when I think about a squat or a deadlift or a bench, or anytime I'm trying to push myself, the thing that it is very experiential in the moment, but the reason why I like it so much is because I was sharing this with a friend at the gym the other day. I used to really doubt myself, and I still do. Everybody does doubt themselves, and that doubt would really manifest when I would go to do something that I had never done before in the gym, whether it was bench press or squats or deadlifts or whatever, and it was going to be a challenge. So I noticed, let's say a bench press or squat for that matter, I'd unrack the bar, I'd take a few steps back, and instantly my mind would start to go, oh, this is so heavy. Like, oh my God, you're never going to get this, just re-rack it. You don't have to do it, And so I started, if you ever read The Little Engine That Could, totally. So I started saying in my mind before, like I'd get amped up, and then I'd get under the bar, and before I even lifted it, I would start to say in my mind, of course I can, of course I can, of course I can, of course I can. And then I'd unrack and I'd walk out and I go, of course I can, of course I can, of course I can. And then I would get ready and I'd, if it's a squat, go down into the bottom and come back up. And the whole time I'm saying in my mind, of course I can, of course I can, of course I can. So in that, I'm in the moment, and the thing I think it's a little bit different, because the thing, it's not about so much feeling the moment. It really is overcoming the internal, for me, that's why I like it so much, overcoming the internal self-doubt. And so that's it's similar, I guess, but a little bit different. If that, does that make sense?
1,000%. Yeah. I mean, because, the reason I'm at the gym too, for everybody listening, I'm doing like handstands you mentioned, but I'm also doing like a lot of calisthenics and like body weight stuff, and, hitting the weights a little bit too. And I can definitely relate to that, because although I said like off the mat, like yoga, it could be a yoga practice too. It's also like, I find that, that actually really resonates deeply. That it's like doing weights, doing calisthenics, like more of a gym style workout, like overcoming self-doubt and can I do 5 muscle ups in a row? Can I do this 400-pound squat, whatever it is, like having to like test your mettle or something and be like I can. And then you bring out that confidence out into the world, the rest of your life. Right. That definitely resonates deep.
I love it. So yoga doesn't just have to be confined to a mat. I've seen you in the gym, and I've seen your Instagram posts, your YouTube videos, where maybe you're down on the beach or doing different things in different places. If we take that concept of yoga, or maybe we could think about it as flow or being present, being mindful of your body and everything that comes up, how do you take that off the mat? How do you bring that into other activities, and what does that look like for you? And what do people get from doing something like that?
Yeah, I think for me, like, at least, yeah, it's like undoubtable. I think I've heard of actually people getting to the state where they're like, I don't even actually practice the actual physical, like asana. Asana is like the physical movements of the practice anymore. And they're like, my whole life existence, I just kind of float around in, this state of yoga, I guess. For me, it's like, good. Yes, it sounds pretty good on paper. For me, it's definitely like I need the physical practice. Like I need to have, maybe, not neurotic. I'm trying to get better about that too. Like I could, take a day or two off and it's all good. Do some stretching when I can. But for me, it's definitely like, I need to have that physical practice. I need to have that pranayama, like the breath practice, and, be connected to that. So it's like ideally, and I know you've been going to the gym first thing in the morning, so you can relate really early, right?
It's awful.
It's awful. Yeah, let's be completely honest. It's terrible in the morning when you get up. Yeah. But once you're there and you're like, okay, now it's way better, right? But as much as I can, I like to, whether it's at the gym or it's at home I'm in my little yoga studio right now, but doing my practice first thing in the morning. And then it's like, once you're connected and your body's feeling good, you've got that, self-confidence that we're talking about, gotten some handstands for the day, you're feeling powerful, maybe before anybody's even up, most people at least. And yeah, it feels like from there, like I can take out, this energy more out into the world, right? And it's, if I'm down at the beach or I'm teaching a yoga class or I'm doing videography work or I'm, today we were talking about doing very human things, like I had to get my oil changed and had to clean up my house and things like that, whatever it is, right? But I think it's like it's doing that physical practice and then like honestly feeling good in your body, and then as much as you can too, coming back to the breath, like especially start to feel like anxious or like whatever it is in daily life, like just taking a moment, like take in like a good breath or two and be like, oh yeah, like I'm back in it, and I'm definitely not perfect. It's not like everything going out and it's all like all rainbows and bliss and sunshine, like in yoga all day long. Like it's really funny because some people that see me see me in most of my life and they're like, oh man, you're so chill, or you're zen, this or that. But I'm like, I have like a major like monster or like dragon inside that is like full of like anger, full of like hate, full of like some weird shit. And it's like doing yoga like allows me to like calm that monster, I guess you could say, like not cage it maybe, but like just like calm it down so that I can go out in regular life and like not freak out in Walmart or something.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, it's like that story, right? The two wolves, which one do you feed? It sounds like you're doing your due diligence to feed the good one.
Absolutely, best I can.
Yeah. You mentioned starting your morning off with yoga. I know that morning routines are a big thing for you. Is that right?
Oh yeah, huge.
So yoga's a part of it, obviously, but if you were to take a broader look at that, what does it look like for you, your morning routine? And maybe more importantly, why is it as important as it is for you to have a morning routine the way that you set yours up?
Yeah, again, I appreciate this question. It's one of my favorite topics. I'm actually going to create a YouTube video about it soonish for sure, because it's one of my favorite things. I feel like the morning is where you set up the day, right? You set up the foundation for the day. And I'm not going to be pious and say like I do this and I'm like so regimented. It's always this, and like I go through periods like that. And it's, where it is like, it's pretty regimented. It's like, actually, Brian, our mutual friend, everybody watching, you can go back a few interviews and watch Brian, but he created something called the 5-day morning motivation challenge, him and his friend Josh. And so I've done that actually a couple of times, and that's like basically a boot camp for kicking your ass into gear for your morning routine. Yeah. And it's, if if you live in Pacific Standard Time, it's getting up at 5 a.m. Well, actually, it's getting up before that because you got to be on the Zoom call at 5.
Oh, dang.
And yeah, it's like, it's pretty hardcore. So getting up at like 5 or before 5, getting on the Zoom call at 5, it's like almost an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. And like, that's regimented. It's like doing Wim Hof. A lot of people probably know Wim Hof, right? Wim Hof breathwork, followed by some like meditation, journaling work, visualization, things like that. And I try to incorporate that into my life as much as I can, those type of practices. But I'm gonna be completely honest, I feel like what I'm realizing more and more is there's like seasons for things. There's like in life in general, right? Like with everything, there's seasons, right? But with my morning routine, I used to be so regimented, like with like this crazy strict, like we're talking, I wouldn't do this now, but it was funny at the time. It would be like, get up at a consistent time, usually like 6 o'clock around there. And it was like, first thing I'd do is like slam apple cider vinegar and eat a clove of garlic.
Oh my God.
Yeah, right. Like crazy stuff. And I hear, you hear all these different health things. And you're like, this is the best thing for me. Right. Yeah. And yeah, turns out, now that that was a phase of life. I'm glad I did it, but that would no longer serve me. And I feel like it no longer serves me to be like, I don't know, like there's times, like right now it's not serving me to be super regimented. Like the time I get up and the things that I do in the morning, like for whatever reason, I'm really enjoying like get up between 6 and 8 a.m. And, sometimes I'll read in bed. Really into like some really good stories right now. So just like read in bed a little bit, and then come to the mat, do yoga. Well, actually, first thing I'm really into electrolytes. Electrolytes that have like collagen, and then what else? MSM for the joints, and then some magnesium, and just like take that down. Then hit the mat, do some yoga, half an hour, maybe an hour, something like that. Get some handstands in, but. Yeah, some days it's like, it looks like that, but other days it's like, it is more like really regimented. It's like, get up and let's do some Wim Hof. Let's do some journaling. Let's get like, and maybe I'll do like a couple days like that. But yeah, it's weird. Like I went through like such a period where I was like too, almost like it was too rigid, if that makes sense. And then that wasn't serving me. So then I had to go in the opposite way. So, to answer your question, that's kind of where it's at right now. But it's what I will say is it's very important to have something and like practices that serve you. And I know that if I like even just having that, drinking a big glass of water with those electrolytes and those supplements, like that's a great way to start. And then it's like, okay, like that's like the first step. If I do that, then it's gonna be easier to go onto the mat and get some fresh air, whatever it is. So morning routines is huge. I'd be curious to know like what's your morning routine like?
Man, like as you were sharing all of that, it's like, you and I have gone down very similar paths probably in the last few years because pre-2020, I was regimented, like just to the minute, had a checklist that I check off every single day, did all the things that people, as you probably did, all the things that people, all the biohackers and the Tim Ferrisses of the world would have you believe you need to do in the morning. And I was ruthless with it, just like it sounds like you were. And then 2020 happened, and I remember in the March, April, May, June months of 2020, I was like, well, why am I getting up at freaking 4:45 and doing all this stuff? There's no reason. The world's burning. Why would I do this to myself? And in all honesty, I was a little bit depressed too. And so I asked myself, just to get out of the funk, it's like, what's the thing that I could commit myself to? That would be life affirming in some type of routine. Like you say, like you mentioned just a second ago, just to have some type of routine, whatever that is. And for me, it was getting up and going for a walk down to Dallas Road. As soon as I woke up, I had my stuff ready. Didn't care what time I woke up, but I had my stuff ready. I wouldn't shower, just put my stuff on, and I'd walk down to Dallas Road and take in the view. And I'd listen to, like, you know, it's going to sound cliche, but I'd listen to like Tony Robbins or, you know, Brian Tracy or something, you know, where it's like uplifting. And man, that was the best decision of my life, because it didn't get me back into some crazy routine that was no longer serving me, like you were saying, but it got me back into some type of routine. And most importantly, it showed me that, like you said, there's a season for everything. And this was the season to give myself a little bit of grace and a little bit of relaxation around what the morning could look like. And now it's a little bit more structured, but you know, to everything there's a season. And the most important thing, I think too, I don't want to go on any longer than I already have, but I think one of the biggest things that we don't ask ourselves often enough is, am I doing this for me, or am I doing this because I think that I'm supposed to? Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah, that resonates very deep.
Yeah.
I think we have a lot of, you know, shoulds, a lot of supposed tos in our lives. And yeah, everything you just said, like, it just resonates like so deep. Outside of this podcast, yeah, I'd love to even have more chats about this, because it seems like it's, had some similar experiences in that. And yeah, I agree with you. That's so cool that you made that shift, that it was like, nope, not serving me anymore. I'm going to switch it up, shake it up. And that felt, you know, really good to you, and that served you in this moment. And then I think we talked too, that like getting up and doing your workout first thing in the morning. Like, you this hasn't been a super long thing that you've been doing. Like, this is more a kind of a recent thing, right?
I recently shifted it because of my schedule. That was it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's good, you know, in a really challenging way.
Challenging way, totally.
Yeah. Well, you know, this might not be the perfect segue, but you were really regimented, following down, you know, something I've spoken with other people on this podcast a lot is this interplay between masculine and feminine energy. And masculine energy, whatever, you know, and I'm not talking about males and females, but masculine energy, feminine energy, we all have both. Masculine energy being very directive, very organizing, very unifocused, right? And feminine being very open, very creative and spontaneous and flowy. Mm-hmm. And you have moved into this season of more openness, of more flow, even though you have a purpose to wake up for in the morning and a guideline that allows you to have some direction. It's still more open and flowy. You mentioned psychedelics have been a big part of your growth in the last little while. Do you feel like that psychedelic expansiveness in your consciousness has anything to do with this new way of approaching life that's less regimented?
That's a really good question. I say that to all your questions. Great questions.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, psychedelics have been actually a part of my life for a very long time, probably since, basically like after, you know, my surgery and stuff like that. It's like a good 12 years or more, just like really using psychedelics as like more of a medicine and exploring the depths of my consciousness. It definitely started out more of, you know, like partying and stuff, let's be honest, but I'm not even like considering those years so much, more more using it as like, you know, whatever it is, mushrooms, LSD, ayahuasca, things like that, as a medicine tool to kind of open up your consciousness, to just different things. Now, it actually definitely does help with the releasing of a rigidness, I guess, inside of you, right? And having to become more adaptable. Definitely. Like looking at it, I guess I haven't really contemplated fully if like psychedelics have been like a main catalyst for that, of like this season of like, you know, not being as rigid, but still having, you know, this waking up and go on my purpose. But yeah, I think they would definitely be up there for helping me with that. I was just I've mentioned to you before we started recording that I was just on Hornby Island, and for anybody listening, if you ever make it out to Vancouver Island and then go to the Gulf Islands of Hornby, it's like just a freaking epic, magical place. But yeah, I was just there, and there's this park called Helliwell, and I just went on a beautiful, this was like 3 or 4 days ago, big mushroom trip. And
is that the 10-gram mushroom trip?
No, that was actually a different one. That was, yeah,
Okay.
that was.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I want to learn about that one too.
Yeah, yeah, that one, that one was another big boy, but that was here in Victoria.
Yeah, I didn't mean it to derail you.
All good. But yeah, the one in Hornby was like, yeah, in this Helliwell Park, which is like these big epic cliffs, and like just in the middle of the night, like me, nobody else, and taking the mushrooms and just going on this wild journey. And I think the reason I love psychedelic medicine so much is that it takes you, or makes you so uncomfortable. Like it takes you to like the edges of your comfort in terms of like, yeah, your consciousness, how you feel about yourself, how you feel about other people. And in this last experience, it was like facing like a lot of darkness, like in terms of like a lot of fear in various ways, and having to like work with that fear. And again, coming back to, the practice of yoga, thank God for yoga and thank God for the breath, because like it like saved me in this moment where it could become too overwhelming and you lose your mind or something like that. Right. But yeah, it feels like the reason why I love psychedelics too is like, it feels like, again, we get all these like energetic barbs on our body, especially on our heart, and then using yoga daily as a daily practice. But I find these like big psychedelic experiences like help you to like release these energetic barbs in like a big way, like in a giant way. It's like a scrubbing or a cleaning of yourself or something, right? Yeah. Actually, plaque, I've been thinking about it a lot. Like it's almost like, everyone can relate to this with your teeth, right? You build up plaque, you have to go to the dentist, they have to like clean it off. And like psychedelics being kind of like that, it's like you're scrubbing off like the plaque of life, right? Like all the BS of life that kind of accumulates, right? But yeah, psychedelics, coming back full circle, is they do, make you more adaptable, I feel, and less, I guess, just less worried about, like, I kind of forgot where I was going to go there for a second, but your original question was...
moving more into the flowy, open state of being, rather than as regimented as you used to be.
Yeah, as regimented, exactly. So yeah, that's like, exactly where I think they take you, is they make you more open and less rigid and like more adaptable just to life. So yeah, I appreciate that question a lot.
Yeah, you've mentioned, I want to learn about the 10-gram trip in just a moment.
Yeah.
Well, you've said medicine a few times, and I think like yoga, that word, people just think of maybe medicine as, Tylenol or what you get prescribed from the doctor. But medicine implies that you are overcoming something, or you're getting rid of something, or you're removing a malady or like some type of sickness, right? So movement is medicine, yoga is medicine, meditation is medicine, psychedelics are medicine. What do you feel like this is medicine from? What are people, like you mentioned, not even realizing that the plaque is building up, right? Until you go to shed it. So what is the medicine helping you work through? Like what is on the other, what is causing us to need this medicine, is maybe a different way of saying the same thing?
I think it's really our society and like how we've kind of developed our society, and how fast paced it is too, right? With, like all this, technology, all these demands on our time and our energy, living in a city. Like when you go to Hornby's like, population of like 1,000 people or whatever, it's super tiny, and you see this small town living, you're like, oh my God, like this is how we're supposed to live. Right? But and we're living in Victoria, which is like a relatively small city compared to some cities, right? But it's like, life is hard. It's hard to be a human being, like let's be honest. Being a human is really hard. And whether it is going out shopping at Walmart. I actually don't shop at Walmart ever. It's funny that you didn't use that example, but Whole Foods, whatever it is. And, you know, having to manage all, you know, your jobs and your careers, your relationships. I just find just being human, living in this life, and with all the technology that we have, like that's where like the plaque and that build up kind of, for me at least, like generally comes from. Yeah. Oh, and then I guess to like finish it full circle, then the medicine is, using the tools like yoga and psychedelics and movement and all this, that medicine to like, I don't know if like remedy, like if it ever like gets rid of it. Like to be honest, like to maybe get rid of like all of your anxieties and be like a total like monk or something. Like I think you do have to like go and live in a cave or something. I just don't think in our daily life that you can come to a place of not having any anxieties. Like I just don't know if that's possible entirely. I think it's just like kind of like managing it, but also like maybe not just managing it, because it is like a working through as well. Like I feel like definitely with all these tools, like in the last few years, like I've definitely have like worked through some serious shit, but it's definitely like, it is a medicine of healing in some regard. I don't know if it like will heal completely, like you're like, I'm absolved of all worries or something like that, but it's definitely a medicine for sure.
I don't know if I'd ever want to be absolved of all, the bad things in life, because, you know, the best in life is only known in contrast to the worst in life. And if you go live in a cave for the rest of your life and don't experience any of the good or any of the bad, I mean, what's the point, you know?
I agree with you. Well, especially in this world, right? Like if we want to be of service to, you know, the people in our communities, and we're living in a city and in this modern times of technology and stuff, I agree with you. You just something you have to work with. Yeah.
But maybe not going and living in a cave for the rest of my life, but Hornby is one of my favorite places in the entire universe as well. I love that place. Same with Salt Springs, same with Tofino, like these tiny little magical places. And I dream often of just, you know, throwing my phone in a dumpster and lighting my computer on fire and then going and living on Hornby for the rest of my life without any connection to the rest of the world. But it's nice to dream. But so you've done what's called a hero dose of mushrooms. You've actually done more than a hero's dose, because I think a hero's dose is anything over 6 grams, if I'm not mistaken, and you've done 10, which is amazing. And as someone who's never done more than it, I've never done a hero's dose. I think the most I've ever done is 4 grams. What prompted you to do a 10-gram dose of mushrooms in the first place, and what was the experience like?
Great question again. I don't know. I love, and it's funny because right from the kind of onset, I guess, of ever doing mushrooms, and I can distinctly remember the first time. It was like, I grew up in Kamloops in the interior of British Columbia, kind of like a, you know, blue collar, some would say maybe a little bit of a redneck town, a little bit. And, you know, me and my buddies going in our 4x4s, going up into the boonies and the backwoods, having a fire, beer, and mushrooms. And I just remember distinctly still like wanting to take so much and being like, whatever, like, fuck it. My friends be like, no, like, go easy. Like these things are, you know, powerful, crazy. And I don't know. It was like, I had this like impetus. Like I just wanted to like, I don't know, get outside of myself or something, or like explore to like a really deep level, like in this like kind of a really uncomfortable state. But so it kind of like, it started kind of all the way back then when it was like, that was, you know, 17 or something, probably like that. But yeah, hero's dose is like Terence Mckenna, who a lot of people might recognize his name, but just an amazing botanist and philosopher, and wrote several books. He was just a character, and he passed away quite a while ago now. He would define like a hero's dose as like take 5 grams and go into a dark room, maybe some music, and just, you know, go internal. And I've done like a lot of like many experiences like that over my life. It's like a dark room, going internal. More, again, seasons. I've been more drawn to taking these bigger doses and then going out and walk around, having some time, like closed eyes and whatnot, but also just being out in nature and the elements. And lately it's been pulling out my camera and chatting. And I don't know, I guess it's like feeling this, you know, this place of my creativity, I guess, too, and my dharma, my purpose to like of more like sharing and doing that a lot through video. But yeah, just showing people that it can be it can be a medicine. It can be like this resource for getting to know yourself at a really deep level, and you have to like get really uncomfortable, right? Like you have to face like just some of the deepest and darkest parts of yourself, and parts that like you might not like a whole lot, right? Your selfishness, your judgment towards yourself and others. And if you've had trauma in your life, like my dad committed suicide, like, you know, like recent experiences, like having to deal with like that grief, like this like deep grief, you know. And it's hard to be there. But for me, it's like, I talk about this a lot too, when you do these like bigger doses, that like a lot of, like if you can do like psychotherapy for years and years, and you might not get the same results, you could say, of like processing and whatnot that you can get from one hero's dose, you know, years and years, or one experience, you know. And for me, it's just like, let's do one experience every couple months, and you know, process this stuff and keep clear, and so that I can have like the best energy that I can to put out to the world. And whether that's, you know, through yoga, through my yoga teachings, and through video stuff, creativity. But yeah, I just want to be as much of a shining light out into the world as I can be. And you know, I find that psychedelics and doing these bigger doses have served me. One thing I will say to your audience though, and everyone listening, is that be careful though, like, you know, be careful. And I don't recommend at all doing a hero's dose right off the bat. Like tread lightly, you know, take a gram or two and experiment, maybe do it with friends to start out with. You're not comfortable just being with yourself, and kind of, you know, build up and see what your tolerance is. I do have some friends that we've talked about too, like sometimes though you just need to like, you dive in, and maybe you dive in a little bit more than you should. You know, you should maybe dip your toe, but instead you dive off a 60-foot cliff. And sometimes that's the case too. Yeah. But I will say to everybody, like, be careful, like, because these medicines are powerful, and you know, they're not for everybody too, right? I'm not recommending that everybody do mushrooms or LSD or psychedelics, any of this stuff. People process in different ways, and I know a lot of people who are like, I don't need, you know, psychedelics to process and to live my best life, and that's totally fine. So, yeah.
You know, that's a fair statement for people to say. By the way, I appreciate you sharing your insights in that story. So it's definitely possible that a lot of people, it's truthful that a lot of people maybe don't need psychedelics in their life. But I'd also argue that a lot of people, myself included, you know, I've done psychedelics, but for instance, ayahuasca, I haven't done ayahuasca yet. Haven't done like 5-MeO, DMT or anything like that. And the reason is because, you know, if we go back to those two ways of living life, this very directed, compartmentalized, single focus approach to life versus the more creative, more open, more expressive, more emotional way of expressing life. Not that you can only have one or the other. You know, hopefully you have a marriage of the two, and they, you know, and there's a season for each, but there's also a season in the day. You know, there's an hour in the day for each. But I definitely find for myself, probably a lot of guys and a lot of girls too, but a lot of guys, I think, just default to this, is this very single focus, this very, kind of push everything off to the side, just narrow focus, moving towards one direction. And I feel, for me at least, there's a lot of trepidation around doing heavy doses of psychedelics. Reason being is because I think deep down underneath, me and other guys or other people who do this in their life realize that, hey, you know what? Like what I'm doing, I'm able to do, but it's at the disservice to a lot of other parts of life, a lot of other things that would add to the richness of my life. And I know that if I did a hero's dose of mushrooms, or if I did go do ayahuasca, or if I did go, do 5-MeO and DMT, that all of that stuff I've been pushing down in order to achieve this goal, or to, win the rat race, that Pandora's box will quickly be opened. And I'm not sure if I'm capable of dealing with it. So I think that's my story, but I feel like it's really a lot of people's story. And if, and especially for guys or girls who say, I don't need this in order to process my thoughts or my feelings or my past or whatever. I think it's worth looking if there's fear underneath that's causing you to take that approach.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's cool that you've done that. It's kind of sitting with it and almost sounds like meditating with it a little bit. And it could be that it could take you, opening that Pandora's box, you never know what's held inside, right? But for you and maybe a lot of other people, it could also be the greatest experience ever if you open that Pandora's box and you're
Definitely.
You're already doing amazing things with your podcasts and your coaching and your training and all that, but it could even take it to a whole other level. And you'd have a whole other lens lens on it that you would maybe not have otherwise, right? So it's like that risk.
60-foot plunge.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, and that's the thing is you never know, and sometimes you just have to take that leap, I guess, but it can be scary too, for sure.
Well, speaking of taking the leap or starting small, you're doing a video right now on microdosing, right?
Yeah, I'm going to, so I filmed actually one when I was in Helliwell, like I mentioned, and I'll probably release that first, but then, I'll have a video on microdosing mushrooms, kind of like my experience with it and how to do it. Microdosing mushrooms, for those that don't know, is quite different, right? It's, you're just taking like a way smaller amount of magic mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms, could be a variety, I guess, and you're just taking that, there's different approaches to it. The way I like to do it is you do it 5 days a week, take this smaller dose. I like to take it first thing in the morning on an empty stomach. And then, it helps to really get you into that flow state that we've been talking about, right? It's just like you get right in there, you just enter right in, and you can kind of ride the wave, and it's beautiful. You almost, sometimes you don't even know it's there. Sometimes you can feel a little bit more, but it's just kind of in the background sometimes. It's a little bit kind of maybe gives you a little bit of a lift and makes your mood happier, allows you to process things easier, it can allow your creativity to flow a little bit easier. It can manifest in different ways for everybody, but I'm going to be creating a video very shortly on that. So everybody listening, check that out depending on when you're listening to this. But have you ever microdosed, Taylor?
Oh yeah. That was my introduction to my mushrooms, was microdosing.
Oh, amazing.
This is in 7 years ago or something like that. And
oh wow, okay.
And or maybe not quite that long ago. I'm really bad with time. I have no idea how long ago it was, but it was seems like a long time ago. And exactly what you just mentioned, getting into. And my favorite part about microdosing mushrooms, maybe it's just because I'm forgetful, I don't know, but I always, same as you, wake up, take them on an empty stomach in the morning, go about your business. And then I don't know if this is your experience, but it's always my experience. It's every time, without fail, I'll forget that I took them. And then I'll have this realization. I'm like, oh yeah, I took a microdose. And then as soon as I have that, oh yeah, I took a microdose, I'm like, oh, and there it is. And everything just kind of gets a little bit shinier, just nice. Things have a good glow about them.
have a good glow about them. Yeah. You find that it's easier for getting your work done and like just staying in the flow?
Yes and no. This is what I'll say. I only learned this recently about microdosing mushrooms. First, they say that different strains don't have different effects because at the end of the day, it's just psilocybin. But from my experience, that's not the case. Like I've had Golden Teachers is my number one favorite, and I've had the best experience. Is that your case? Is the case with you as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Golden Teacher too.
Yeah, and I've had other ones that are not. There's, I think that she called them blue meanies or something like that. I will never buy those again in my entire life. It's, but interestingly enough, actually, just a side tangent about blue meanies. So blue meanies for me was a really, and I don't know if that's what they were called. That's how I remember them. That's what I thought she called them. But it was like this. It was like this overwhelming sense of like fear and. Just imagine like the worst things that sometimes people experience with mushrooms, that would happen every time, even on a microdose, and it would build up. And then for maybe an hour and a half, and then it would peak. And then once you got over the wall, it was fine. It's actually blissful, but without fail, every single time leading up to that it was awful. But what I was going to say about microdosing is so 2020 and 2021 has been, for a lot of people, and myself included, just an absolute roller coaster, and caused a lot of us to question a lot of things in our lives. And some people, myself included, my business was just, tried to pivot a number of times, and like, it was a bloodbath for a long time. But microdosing in the past was always beneficial. I always felt really like it added so much value to my life. And I realized this year when I was microdosing, it was not the case at all. It was actually really, it felt like it was chipping away at the foundation of my ability to cope with some of the challenges in my life, if that makes sense. Like it just made the foundation on which I made judgments, on which I made decisions, on how I was able to deal with challenges, especially challenges that lasted more than just a few hours and would often bleed into the week or several weeks, just completely undermine that, to the point where I got to I had to stop microdosing, because it was like either I microdose and I get these benefits that I'm getting from them for creativity, and my business, and I completely destroy my own business, or I stop taking them and make an even keel, a more even keel in life, if that makes sense.
Oh, so interesting. I really appreciate you sharing that your experience with this. Like, really appreciate you sharing that. And there's like parts of that I can really resonate in my own experience too. That, yeah, it's interesting. Potentially, if you're doing it when you're maybe facing like an overwhelming amount of anxiety or stress in your life, and like it might actually not serve you. Just like, especially on the day-to-day, like maybe taking a big dose and like having some time to like, integrate and, work with it, especially with like somebody shamaning you through it, that could be really helpful. But doing like a smaller dose and like daily and like just trying to work with it, and then in your business, like it can bring up a lot of things and almost can incapacitate you to be able to, do the work that you need to do. And like, I definitely agree with you. I actually had a little period like that, because again, as we say, like 2020 was just so fucked, for lack of a better word, right? And
no, that's the best word.
That's the best word. Nobody's going to argue with that. And I definitely had a period of time where I couldn't really do it either, because I kind of actually forgot about that until you just said it now, because I've been in such a good state, and things have like been building so much momentum in different facets of my life and business that I've been able to do it whenever I want recently. But I forgot about that. There was a period where it wasn't serving me, and it was like, it would almost like incapacitate me it was like throwing me off course. So it's a really good point for the audience, and something actually that you've shifted something, and I'll have to see how I'll incorporate it, but something that I'll definitely bring up and mention in the video for sure. Maybe potentially if you want to get on camera and chat about it, we can talk about that.
I appreciate you. Yeah, man. Well, Michael, I realize that we're well over an hour now, and I want to be mindful of your time. You have a wonderful YouTube channel that's growing really quick. Like what are you at right now? You're at almost at 10,000.
Oh no, not quite that much. Almost 1,000, getting close. I think I'm at like 7. Yeah.
For some reason I thought you were almost at 10,000 with your YouTube channel.
No, not quite there yet. I want to get to 10,000.
Well, let's just pretend it's at 10,000 because by the time this goes out in a couple of weeks, you'll be at 10,000. So
I
you'll
hope
be fine.
so.
Yeah.
But it's growing slowly, but steadily though, and I appreciate everybody that is part of my audience and stuff. And if everyone on your channel wants to check it out, it's Michael Toru. You can also type into YouTube yoga with Michael. It's like I think 65 to 70 yoga classes on there, and then I've started doing more off the mat videos, so more of these videos about the mushrooms and microdosing, and it's not only just psychedelics, other things too, like I did with my buddy Sean, learning how to do a backflip, things like that.
In a day,
which is fun. That was a wild journey for sure. So if you want to learn how to do a backflip, check out that video. But a lot of the videos, I mean, they range from anywhere from like 10 minutes to an hour. A lot of flow-based stuff, but I have a whole beginner series actually on there too. So if you've never done yoga before, you can go and do like a full 7-day beginner series. And then I have like tons of different classes that are really feel good stuff for the body. So I'd love people to check it out.
So definitely, and a couple of things I'll say to that. You, at the start of this podcast, mentioned that yoga isn't just done on the mat, which I think that your channel, your YouTube channel, is a great place for people to get familiar with why movement is medicine, because it's not just about going into a downward dog for 20 minutes on your mat. It can also be going and having fun, moving around at the beach, or going into the forest and doing your thing in there, or whatever it ends up being. Also the other facets of holistic wellness that you bring into your channel, just a really great place for people to go check out. You're, if I'm not mistaken, sitting cross-legged on your floor, right?
Not on my floor, actually. I got a little, got a couple cushions, like my meditation cushion and things like that. Yeah.
But you're sitting cross-legged nonetheless, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't do that. I'm sitting in a chair. Most guys can't sit. That's actually something I'm really, I aspire to be able to sit cross-legged comfortably the way that you have for the last hour, which is like my back hurts just thinking about that. But I feel like, going back to this whole idea of medicine, I've been really diligent about my stretch routine in the evenings the last month and a bit. And going back to that idea that emotions and energy, like you mentioned, burrs throughout your body, get trapped and need release through movement. Guys and girls, I keep saying guys, but guys and girls who regularly go to the gym and wind themselves up day in, day out, they have no problem going and lifting heavy things. We need it the most. So if you're going to the gym 5 days a week, then you can definitely find 2, 3 days, 4 days a week to start moving your body and stretching it out. So I hope they go check out your channel. Where can they find that, by the way, on YouTube? How do they find it?
Yeah, if you type in Michael Toru, and Toru is Toru, they'll definitely find it. That's just my channel name, my name. But also if you type in, maybe easier to remember, is Yoga with Michael, and I'll be the first one that comes up. So just type that in the search bar, and
nice.
We'll see you on the mat. But I appreciate you saying that, because and we mentioned this way earlier talking too, but strength it's many things, right? It's not just it's not lifting that 400-pound squat or deadlift or whatever, right? It's keeping that mobility so that you can, squat ass to grass and it feels good in the hips, in the body, and you not feel like you're going to break, And a yoga practice can definitely help with that. So I would love for your listeners to come and check out my channel for sure and do some yoga with me.
And your Instagram.
Instagram
you have
too.
tons of great content on there as well. And I want to make sure, I don't want to say something that's false here. If I'm not mistaken, you also do coaching, right? Like you do online coaching still. Is that something that you're doing or no?
Not as much anymore. I was doing a little bit more of that again with like the pandemic and everything and like, shifting and, I kind of realized like I so into videography and whatnot. So I've started doing a lot more into that direction. So it's more just teaching yoga in studio, focused on my YouTube channel, doing some other online teaching and whatnot. But I would love for everyone to connect with me on Instagram, which is just at Michael Toru, and Toru again is Toru. But I try to put as much good content, good vibe stuff up on there as I can, and I really appreciate, your Instagram as well. It's like, it just seems like there's a lot of people putting out good quality, high vibe content, and that's what I'm trying to do too. So keep it going.
Appreciate you, man. Well, Michael, pleasure as always. I look forward to seeing you in the gym, but, and doing a part two, man, because there's, you have a lot more to share, and I look forward to seeing your YouTube channel get to 10,000 in the next 2 weeks and all the great content that you put out and continue to put out.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Thanks so much for having me on. And it's been a pleasure just chatting and getting to know each other and getting to share with your incredible audience today.
Thanks again for checking out this episode of the Power Plant Body Podcast. If you enjoyed it, I'd be grateful if you left it a rating and review on iTunes. When you leave it a rating and review, it really helps because it lets iTunes know, and they'll be more likely to promote it to others who could also benefit from hearing these conversations. And feel free to share this episode with people who could also benefit from Michael's insights into yoga, movement, and mindfulness. Make sure you check out Michael's growing YouTube channel. It should be around the 6-figure mark with subscribers by the time that this episode goes live. I'll leave a link to Michael's channel in the show notes page for this episode, but you can find it by searching Michael Toru on YouTube. That's MichaelToru. You can also find Michael on Instagram, where he shares great content on movement and yoga and mindfulness. His Instagram handle is at Michael Toru. That's at MichaelToru. And don't forget to head over to powerplantbody.com/free-tools to get your hands on a free copy of the Goal Wheel PDF, along with tons of other free tools. I'm regularly adding new resources to that page to help you create the best version of yourself, so you'll definitely want to bookmark it. You can find me on Instagram at The Vegan Trainer, and feel free to send me a DM if you have any questions or suggestions for future episodes. Thanks again for spending some time with Michael and I today. I'll see you in the next episode.